Oh, okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education Business Meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. The time is now 7:02 p.m. We could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to start the meeting, and with me this evening, I have Board Member Ashley Gulyas, Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig, Janine Randolph, Tara Bakey, Sherry McCready Pritchett. Virtually, I have Howard White, Jasmine Precy, and Colin Hostin. And also with me, we have Dr. Alexandra Estrella and some of our cabinet members. And with that, if we could also have a moment of silence for Dr. Ralph Sloan. Thank you. I'll transfer and if there's anyone that wants to sign up for public comments, there's a list right by the door. You have 5 minutes to sign up before we collect the list so that we can get it started. It's over by the door there. And online, if you'd like to make any public comments, please raise your hands now so we can take a list of everyone speaking this evening. And Ms. Bakey will do the spotlight for this evening.
Dr. Moore.
Yes.
Okay, if you can, maybe they can just pass you
Kind of
the,
hard to get back there.
or they can pass it to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Chairwoman Carpio. So tonight we have two spotlights. The first is Brian McMahon High School Marching Band and Guard and Norwalk High School Percussion promoted in competition groups. The Norwalk Board of Education is proud to recognize two of our outstanding high school music programs for their recent promotions into the highest levels of national competition. These achievements are the result of exceptional talent, dedication, and a great commitment by our students, staff, and school communities. This past fall, the Brian McMahon High School Marching Band and Guard advanced from A class to open class in U.S. Bands competition, an elite level reserved for the top marching ensembles in the country. This promotion reflects the hard work and discipline of the band under the leadership of Director Ron Secchi and his talented instructional team. Based on their scores and placements in the 2024 season, the band met the rigorous thresholds outlined by U.S. Bands, earning the right to compete at the 2025 U.S. Bands Open Class National Championships at MetLife Stadium this November. This milestone highlights not only the band's exceptional musical and performance skills, but also the incredible support of the BMHS administration, Norwalk Public Schools, and the greater community. On the east side of town, the Norwalk High School Percussion Ensemble has been promoted to the WGI class, Percussion Scholastic World, the highest competitive class and a great honor in the world of indoor percussion. This promotion recognizes that the ensemble has surpassed the skill level and expectations of their previous classification and is prepared to compete at the most advanced tier. Norwalk High School now holds the distinction of being the first scholastic world-class marching percussion ensemble ever from the state of Connecticut. Congratulations to Director Chris Rivera, who I know is not with us here tonight. He did send his regrets, his dedicated instructional team, and the incredibly talented student musicians for setting a new standard of excellence for Connecticut music programs. Norwalk Public Schools has long been recognized as one of the best communities for music education in the nation. These recent accomplishments by our student musicians and their instructors reaffirm that proud reputation. We offer our congratulations to the Brian McMahon and Norwalk High School music programs, and we look forward to watching their continued success on the national stage.
So for the photo, we're gonna go out in the lobby where the star is. You can't miss it. It's facing right in front of the elevator. So if we can all march out.
Yeah.
We're live.
They went together.
So picking up with our second spotlight this evening. Norwalk High School wins state bowling championship. The Norwalk Board of Education proudly congratulates the Norwalk High School bowling team for capturing the championship title at the 12th annual SEAC High School State Bowling Championship this March. This incredible victory not only earns them a well-deserved trophy, but also put our NHS bowlers on the map. Held at Bolero Milford Lanes, the state tournament featured 24 high school teams from across Connecticut, each competing for the top spot. In a strong display of teamwork, focus, and skill, Norwalk High rose to the top, finishing ahead of Bristol Eastern High School in second place and Wilcox Technical High School in third. Bowling, one of Connecticut's few co-ed high school sports, has grown in popularity since the SEAC began hosting the State Bowling Championship in 2012. The championship was established in response to interest from students across the state involved in local leagues. Now, Norwalk High is leading the way. The Norwalk Board of Education celebrates your success and looks forward to seeing the team continue to grow and compete.
Victor?
Sure, absolutely.
We can do it here.
Yeah. Smaller group, we could probably just stay in here, right?
Yeah.
This is Cephas Beebe. He is our captain of our team. He was responsible for putting the group together. I knew he was a very accomplished bowler. Asked him if it was something he'd be interested in. Mr. Marquette, I'd be happy to do it. He took the packet. He recruited the players. Was our leading bowler at the competition. Going to school for bowling, yes? Michigan University. So we're very proud of him and all of the.
Where do you want to just come out here?
Just be careful with the line.
Yep. Let's just stand like right on. We come over here. Oh, yeah, right in the middle.
Well, the superstar.
Yeah. There we go.
Mr. McKay, where you going?
Trying to hear my phones.
Oh.
The team don't know it's a podcast that I really want to listen to. I'll just stand back here.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Awesome, great job, guys. Did you get a picture?
Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Good job very much.
Awesome.
Congrats.
Yeah,
Yeah, where are you going? Congratulations. Good job. Yeah.
Job coaching.
Before we move to public comments, I just have to say that I think it's amazing, you know, and you don't think about what our students can go to school for or to college for. And the thought that, you know, a teacher saw that in him and asked him if that was an interest that he had and if he wanted to start a team. And look at where, you know, that idea came and where they're at now, and amazing that he's gonna go to school for that.
It's great. Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is public comments. Sharing a pretty picture.
Thank you, Chairwoman Carpio. I have one person signed up, Lynn Moore. Please state your address. Please. I'm gathering that I would be using this mic.
Yes, you may. Thank you.
Lynn Moore, 813 Foxborough Drive, Norwalk, Connecticut. Principal of Norwalk High, but president of NASA, and I'm speaking on behalf of our organization. On April 8th, the superintendent asked me to remain after a meeting. In the room were Rob Pennington, Sandra Fayolis, Lunda Asmani. The superintendent announced without any specifics that she was cutting special education positions, but creating 3 new special education positions under the category of central office. There was no written agenda for this meeting, nor any documents to indicate that the district had a plan as to how the services to children would be managed without the special education administrators. In the meantime, not one cut has taken place in the superintendent's cabinet. You should know that 3 of the special education administrators have an arbitration case against the district. It is not a neutral act that the 3 are part of the RIF. NASA considers these actions to be vindictive and reckless. Reckless because special education students are not meeting achievement benchmarks, and reckless because there is no information as to how cases will be managed without a certified special education administrator. The blame is often placed upon the community that parents and community members did not rally for the 9+% budget. It is being placed upon NFT that rising Cigna health costs has now created a need to cut services to the students who need the most support. The average salary, according to the census in Norwalk, is $96,000. Our officials through the city and BET have supported a 4% increase. We believe that the district has spent beyond its means. And now, as a result, we are in a situation where we are doing reconciliation, not by the board, but through the superintendent's office. This is the time for the BOE to take an active role in the budget process as it relates to the reconciliation of the budget, most like what the board did in the past. The BOE members were elected by the community to provide oversight. The BOE members are the persons to whom the superintendent reports. We cannot continue to manage the finances of the district in the current manner, where we are grabbing things to cut without considering the repercussions and then blame the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else who wish to speak?
Online, why next year too?
No.
So online, I think I saw one person.
Yes, Diane Lorcello. So Diane, I'm just gonna unmute you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can see me, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Carpio, Board of Ed, and staff. For the record, my name is Diane Loricella. I've lived in Norwalk for over 40 years. Can't believe it. Today, as many of you already know, we're celebrating April 22nd is Earth Day. So I wanted to come before you, seeing it was a business meeting, and just request that whenever possible, this Board of Ed and the staff take a look at ways that we can optimize waste management and recycling. In March, I sent an email to the chair people of the related committees relating to food waste and donations. So that would be Ms. Bakey in facilities, Ms. McCready Pritchett in the financial committee, and I thought Ms. Carpio, Chair Carpio, as I thought chair of policy, but also chair of the board, and then Ms. Mary Ellen also for policy and curriculum, because those are all related to a comprehensive approach that involves the students as well as the teachers and staff in reducing waste. It helps because these are our future leaders. We want them, of course, to think twice before buying too much, or think twice before throwing things out that can be reused or reduced or recycled. So I sent out an email, and I just thought I would come, being Earth Day, I would come and once again request that someone from either the board of the ed or the staff who were included on the email with Sandra Fewis, as well as Superintendent Estrella and Lunda Asmani, the financial director, so that we could have a meeting to get ready for a January 2026 law where schools will be required to have a food waste and donation system and plan, and the related haulers, etc. My hope is that we can come together with a meeting before the end of school and then meet periodically throughout the summer, when I know you all get a lot done, to have at least some pilot programs beyond what is currently taking place in the district, or starting a district-wide beginning of a food waste and donation program. Right now, I am aware that food scraps are being picked up by Blue Earth at, I think, 2 schools right now, Cranberry and Jefferson, and that there are donations being picked up under Food Rescue US, of which I am a volunteer. They are still taking place at Norwalk High School.
Ms.
I believe,
Lorchella, your time is up, 3 minutes. Can you wrap
Okay,
it up?
yes, I will wrap it up. So I would like to know, because apparently no one has answered my letter. Can someone from the staff just follow up so that we can put together a meeting to go forward and work together for the good of our city, the good of our students, and the good of the earth on this Earth Day? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is the conclusion of public comments. Any email comments will be included in the record. Chairwoman Carpio, I'd like to you.
Okay, thank you. And next item on the agenda is Superintendent's Report, Dr. Alexandra Estrella.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I want to start off by talking about 2 items that are coming up for the board. There's 2 negotiations that will be taking place, one sooner than the other. The first is the contract for security guards, custodians, food services. We are working with Shipman and Goodman in starting those negotiation processes, and we're in the process of moving forward with scheduling those negotiations. I've been in communication with Mary Jordan, president of NFT. We will start negotiations with NFT. We're scheduled to start in June. I know that NFT has requested, if possible, to start sooner, so we've been engaging our board attorney to discuss that possibility. And those negotiations will hopefully commence before the conclusion or at least initiating in June. So I just wanted to point those two contracts that are coming up as we close out this academic school year. Does the board have any questions about those two?
Howard, Jasmine?
Yes, when the official date for those contracts, and when do we have to approve on that? And what's the time frame?
So the conversations are for the security guards, custodians, and food services are just about to begin. So that will take a few months to finalize. And with the teachers, we would hope to start those conversations before June, and that will take some time as well. So it won't come to the board's agenda until those negotiations have concluded, and that won't happen until a few months from now.
Thank you. I'm sorry, one more. The contract, the first one, as far as security and the maintenance, is that a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year?
That's something that will be discussed during negotiations,
Okay,
but usually they are 3-year contracts.
okay, thanks.
Any further questions from the board? Okay. So I'm gonna ask Mr. Asmani and Rob Pennington to join me. The board had requested an update around the budget. So as we discussed the difficult decisions ahead and the difficult decisions that have taken place thus far, I want to take a moment to clarify some of the public dialogue around our budget process. First, I think it's important to emphasize that this has not been about mismanagement or spending beyond our means. Over the past few years, Norwalk Public Schools has made intentional investments in programs that address real urgent student needs, academic recovery, mental health supports, multilingual learner needs, and equity-based initiatives across the district. These services were introduced in response to a crisis, and in many ways, the crisis is still with us. We are still seeing the impacts of interrupted learning. We are still supporting students who are navigating social-emotional challenges, and we are still committed to closing opportunity gaps. However, the financial context we are working within has changed. Like school districts across the country, we are grappling with the expiration of federal COVID relief funds. At the same time, we are facing increased costs in core areas, particularly healthcare, transportation, utility, and materials, which place significant pressures on our operating budget. These conditions require us to make reductions even though the needs for services remain. That's the tension we're living in, responding to real student needs while fulfilling our obligation to present a balanced budget. I also want to address a misconception that may be circulating. There is no blame being placed on the mayor, the Common Council, the Board of Estimate and Taxation, our families, for the difficult decisions we face. In fact, our relationship with the city leadership has been collaborative and respectful. We fully recognize that the city is navigating its own fiscal constraints. I myself have been in numerous conversations with the mayor and members of the council, members of the BT, alongside Mr. Asmani and other members of my cabinet. And we have discussed about how to creatively address many of the budgetary challenges ahead. In my conversations with the mayor, we've discussed the possibility of finding additional resources And it's something that we continue to contemplate to find ways in which we can responsibly find additional resources to minimize the impact across the organization. Our goal is not to politicize this moment. It is to lead through this process with integrity, transparency, and humility. We will continue to work with our partners in Stewart to ensure that we advocate and continue to find resources to meet the needs of our students. When asking to meet with members of our bargaining group, we do it in good faith, to have conversations, to bring them up to date, to give them heads up of some of the things that we have to navigate. And it is unfair for judgments to be passed of the intentions behind our work when we are acting in good faith for the benefit of all students and all of those that we are serving in the system. And we understand how hard our educators are working throughout the system, from our school leaders, our teachers, our paraeducators, our food services, security, and all personnel. And this has not been an easy process. It has been one of the most challenging budgetary cycles we have experienced in Norwalk for quite some time. Yet we have a fiscal responsibility to balance this budget and to do it in the most responsive and productive manner. I'm not going to sit here and demonize people in order for us to move forward in doing the work. I am committed to working in collaboration with all of the individuals that will help make this process as seamless as possible, particularly because this process impacts people. And we want to make sure that as we do that, we do this with integrity and respecting the integrity of those individuals. So for the board, I want to provide an update going back to last year's fiscal budgetary process, looking at central office, looking at the reductions that have been made. I think one of the things that I've spoken a lot over the course of the past few years is that central office is in service of schools. That all of the services that we provide are for children, are to support schools. And if you come to central office on any typical day, most of the people in central office are in schools because we are here to support schools. There's been a lot of conversation about not enough reductions happening in central office. Yet from the onset, the first group of people that we looked at reducing were central office personnel. And that was during phase one. If you, and Mr. Asmani will speak more to it and I will add accordingly. We then started looking at school reductions, and then from there, we made it clear to all schools that this process would not end there. That we would probably most likely have to go back to schools, engage in further reductions and making further modifications. At this point in time, all of the schools so far, for the exception of the comprehensive high schools, have met their target. Obviously, the comprehensive high schools are more complex learning environments that require more time and finesse in how we look at how we need to navigate reductions. I have to commend Allison Breedy Johnson for her work with the comprehensive high schools in trying to make the necessary reductions to balance their budget. It has not been an easy process. I want to commend the two school leaders because I know, and I think they're in the room. I know that the process that Ms. Woods and Dr. Moore had to engage through making these reductions have not been easy. And it's not something, I say this all the time, the hardest job is to have to remove people that we know are doing good work. It is the hardest job that anyone can do. And it is the unfortunate place that we are in right now. We're possibly engaging in a second cycle of reduction, one of which includes additional central office personnel. Unfortunately, like all central office personnel, they have a direct impact in our schools. If it was up to us, we would not make any of these modifications. Yet we are in a predicament where we have to. We have close to $7 million that we still have to reduce in our budget. And we have to do it by looking at what other components of our budget we can reduce. When you have a budget that over 80% of it is people, we are unfortunately put in a predicament that we have to make reductions of personnel. What sometimes, and this is a conversation we've had with the council as we educate the council around school budgeting, is that when we make reductions to programs, program reductions means reductions of people, a reduction in people. And this has been one of the years that it's become more evident than ever, because if you recall, during fiscal year 25, we made some significant reductions already. There is nowhere else for us to cut where we don't make a significant impact in the system. And that is unfortunate, yet we are not the only district in this nation that is dealing with this challenge. That coupled with a lot of the federal uncertainty that currently exists, where we still don't know where 30% of our budget, which encompasses grants, will be at come September, October, or even this summer. We have other federal grants that hold a good chunk of personnel with, if you recall, our MSAP grant, that we still don't know yet where those funding lie. We had the opportunity to speak with Congressman Himes, and we pleaded our case of the importance of his advocacy at the federal level to make sure that we keep as much as we possibly can of those federal resources, because they play a critical role in us being able to maintain the systems and structures that we currently have as intact as possible. Where grant opportunities are available, we have made every effort to apply. Unlike other fiscal years, we are faced with the unfortunate reality that there is not much out there like there used to be for us to apply. Because if there's something out there that we can compete against, trust me, we are going after those dollars. So I just wanted to start with that, because my team has worked tirelessly in trying to do the best possible job in an impossible situation. And I want to thank Mr. Osmani and his team for his efforts. Mr. Pennington and his team, he has had to make some of the hardest decisions in this district around his team. And I want to also thank Ms. Fayois for her leadership, as well as Marianne and Allison. You have been amazing. The work that you've done with the principals, you know, people might not know, but it has been incredible. So I thank you for that. Ralph, your efforts in helping us use some of the tools to enhance what we're doing in really meaningful ways and find creative solutions, always thinking outside the box. Thank you for that. And our amazing Kimberly, our attorney, who's been working tirelessly with our bargaining groups, looking at the RIF process, trying to make it as humane as possible. I really commend you and the team for the work that you've done, and will continue to do, because the work doesn't end yet. But it takes a village to do this, and it has not been easy. And I think I need to preface with that. And I know that in difficult times, emotions go high, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're all here for the same reason, which is for children and for families, and to do what's best for them. Yeah, we have constraints that we are inevitably going to have to deal with. And we're going to be working tirelessly to do the best we can to get through this. Mr. Asmani, I'm gonna turn it over to you to go into some of the context about the work happened last year, some of the reductions, and then moving into the work this year. And then Mr. Pennington, you and I will tag team on some of the other components.
Thank you, Superintendent Estrella, and good evening, Board of Ed. So I wanted to spend some time to recap. Those of you that are on the Finance Committee, some of this information is information I shared with you before we took the break. So I want to start with the capital budget. The capital budget has been approved. As you recall, the current year's capital budget was 7.8 million. We put together a recommended, and the board approved a capital budget request of 7.4 million. That went through the process. The CFO, city CFO made a recommendation. The mayor made a recommendation. We presented to the CFO, we presented to the mayor, we presented the budget to the Planning and Zoning Committee. We then presented a capital budget to the Economic and Community Development Committee of the Common Council, and then presented to the Common Council. Through the course of this process, I believe it was sometime in January or February, we heard from the city, our colleagues on the city, the challenges of the capital budget request. There are some bonding issues, there are some challenges with the debt level and the bond rating. And so they came to us and in a collaborative fashion said, we will not be able to fund $7.4 million that you fully requested. However, would you be able to trim that budget down at 6 to 6.9, which is the current number? And they requested of us, rather than them make those reductions arbitrarily, they gave us the opportunity to sit with our team to review and resubmit the budget with those adjustments, which is what we did. So we did go in and we did make some tweaks to the initial request. The 3 projects that we tweaked were the enhancements to school security. We have, we were embarking on enhancements with our AI model, identifying trends and things that happen in the buildings. So we were able to tweak that by reducing the number of views that we have, that we had purchased. So we made those adjustments there. We also had 250,000 in the capital budget for curriculum materials, the new science curriculum. We reviewed that and we made those adjustments to 200,000. And then we also made adjustments to our technology. We sat down with Ralph and his team, and the technology budget not only includes technology for staff, but it also includes student technologies. You know, we're a one-to-one district with about 12,000 students. We have about, at minimum, 12,000 devices. Most of them are in a 4-year cycle, so each year we replace about 3,000 devices annually. So we looked at the status of our technology, we made some tweaks, extended some replacement cycles and made some adjustments to it. But with that, we were able to resubmit the request of 6.9 million. We are thankful that the board, the council approved full funding of our resubmitted request. But I think that, again, as the superintendent mentioned earlier, speaks to the collaborative aspects of the city and the Board of Ed in working together. It wasn't always this way. There were years in the past when we would just get budget slashed without knowing. If you recall, one year we had band instruments that just went away without consultation, and we had to engage in a process to get them back. But since then, the process has been a lot more collaborative. So we do have a formally adopted capital budget that fully funded our resubmitted request. So shifting to the operating budget, I do want to recap where we were this time last year. You recall last year, we submitted an initial request of 8.2%. Similar to what we did this year, before submitting that 8.2% budgeted request, there were some adjustments that we had made in order to get to that 8.2. If you recall last year, the initial request that we received from the departments, I think we started at like a 12 or a 14%. And through the work with the superintendent and cabinet officers and other team members, we narrowed that down to 8.2%. And that was the budget that we submitted to the city and the board approved. Through the process, when that process concluded, the city council approved a budget of 3%. So at that point, we had to go through the process we're going through now, is reconciling the 8.2 to the 3%. This is the same presentation I presented last year, reconciliation, but it's just recapping some of the adjustments that we had to make last year to get to the 3%. There are a number of items that we had initially hoped to do last year that we didn't. including planning for teacher release time. We had magnet funding for schools, but again, working with the city. We did have some additional funding that came through ARPA grants that the city received. They received 5 million. They provided to the district 1.8 million, so that allowed us to get there. There was also some additional grant funding through ECS Alliance that we received about 1.2 million, and we also made some other non-school reductions in order to get there. But that still didn't get us to that target. And so when we met initially, then we engaged in a phase 2, similar to what we're engaging to now. At the time, we looked again at central office positions. We didn't go back to the schools. At that time, we eliminated almost 670,000 in central office reductions and positions. We had made some additional adjustment, but that's how we got to that 3%. And so just to recap, this is information I presented to you last year. As you recall, in getting to that 8.2% last year, as you recall, Dr. Thomas McBride, former deputy superintendent, moved to another district mid last year. Part of our presentation to that budget, that is a cabinet position that was not filled. As you know, those duties were reassigned to Deputy Superintendent Theolis and others, and so we reorganized. But at that time, that cabinet level position was not filled last year. So the cabinet was reduced by 1 last year. In addition to that, we did make some additional reductions in central office. There was a position in the HR department. There was a position in the curriculum department. There was a position in the instructional department. There was a position in finance that we would hope to fill that we reduced. There was a position in technology. There was a student information systems position that we reduced. And then there was a project manager position in central office. So these were the central office positions that were reduced last year to reconcile to the budget. So now we're in FY 26, and this is a presentation that I shared. As you know, we were approved a budget of just over 233 million. The budget that you approved, at 9.7%, represented 255 million. As you recall, when we presented to you the budget last year, we had also presented with you a list of 21 central office positions that we eliminated, reorganized and added 7 positions for a net reduction of 14 positions. This was what we presented at the time. If you also recall at the time, we had indicated at the time that there was still another, to get to that 9.7%, there was about $1 million worth of positions that we had yet to identify. So we knew that we would have to go back to identify that additional, those additional positions, which is what we'll talk about. So then with that number, the board, the city council, the board approved a budget. The council set a budget cap of 242 million, which left a gap of 13.4 million. So at this point, we engage in the process with the schools while also engaging with central office to identify how to make up that difference. So far, we've been able to find reductions in the school's budget about of 12.1 million, which we provided an update to you, I believe, at the last meeting. But in doing so, we also received some updated information. At the time, we had estimated about 10% increase in our insurance premiums we have 2 plans right now. We have some that are on the state plan and some that are on the Cigna plan. We did find out during this process, which is typically when we find this information out, the state plan went up 11%. The Cigna plan went up 15%. You will recall last year it also went up 15%. So this is the second year of 15% increase on the Cigna plan. So with that number, because these are contractual obligations, we had to go ahead and update the budget. So between those adjustments, that added another $2.4 million to the budget, even though we had identified 12.1 reductions. So with that, we're now sitting at about a $246 million total budget request with those adjustments. In our initial budget request, we had included the use of carryover funds of about $2.5 million. In looking at this budget this year, and you recall, in going through this budget this year, we had also indicated that last year, because of the level of funding, we anticipated challenges with special education. And that's why we've been doing a number of transfers, looking for savings. At this point, it does not seem likely that we would have that $2.5 million still available in this year to carry us into next year. We're going to be dipping into that $2.5 million to cover some of our special education expenses. And this is a conversation we had with the city. We had indicated if still we're not able to meet those special education obligations, we may have to go to the city for special appropriation. But that's kind of where we are right now. So once you add all that together, now we are still facing a gap of 6.7 million. And so now in looking at these budgets, we've met with our schools, we've done our initial round of central office reductions, but we're still looking at 6.7. Some of the things that we're looking at this year is we are in conversations with the state. And so we're hoping that there may be some additional state funding. As you recall, there was some additional funding this year for special education. We're hoping that next year we would get some of that. It's not going to be 6.7 million, but I think it'll help us get to that target. So we're working with that. We're hoping the next 2 weeks or so, the General Assembly and the governor will have a reconciled budget. We'll have an indication of that amount. We are also still in conversation with the city. If you recall, the night that the BET approved the budget, the mayor did indicate that he would work with the superintendent, as he's done these past 2 years, and see if there's any supplemental funding that they could provide to the Board of Ed. Again, we don't believe it's going to be 6.7 million, but it's going to be something to help us towards that. So even with those adjustments, we still have some work to do on our end to get to that number. And so as we had indicated, there may be more than just one round of phases to get us to that number. So with that, I'm going to segue to where we are now. Let's see. And I'll defer to Mr. Pennington to speak to these next 2 slides. We have started to look at central office. So within central office, in addition to the special education positions that Mr. Pennington is going to look at, we also identified health office aide in the budget. It says nurse unit, it's actually NFEP bargaining unit that we're eliminating. There is an IT technician position in digital learning that we'll also be eliminating. And then I will let Mr. Pennington speak to some of these special education positions that we're restructuring. So there are some positions that we're eliminating, but then there are also some positions that we will be adding in the union. So between the additions and the reorganized position reductions, the central office reorg will generate about another $1.2 million. Still not getting us to the $6.7 million, but again, this is just a step in that process. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pennington or Superintendent.
So before we go into the conversation around the special education supervisors, I want to talk about in phase 2, the position number 10 in curriculum, which is the education administrator for STEM. We had designated 2 education administrators for humanities and 2 for STEM. Given the scope and size of the district, we wanted to have a similar model to what we have with the leadership directors, where they would have cohorts of approximately 11 schools. Unfortunately, given the constraints that we have, we're not going to fill this year the position of education administrator for STEM as a way to create another reduction that will put us closer to balancing the budget and closing that $6.7 million gap. As well as the 2 others that Mr. Osmani mentioned. Now, we then also were looking at how can we continue to reorganize central office in a way that would allow us to effectively continue to engage in reductions, avoid going back to the schools, because we know the importance of keeping our teachers in the classroom, keeping the admin team in the schools as best as possible. I mean, when we look at the data in terms of mental health achievement gains, we just looked at some of our new data. It showed very promising results given the structures and supports that we had put in place. And it's really unfortunate that through this budget process, some of those structures unfortunately will be impacted. Yet the results that they have been yielding have been really positive, particularly around the work that we were doing around mental health and other supports. With the work around the curricular work, I think that we built a structure, added additional responsibilities to members of the cabinet to help kind of balance the work. You know, I think sometimes people underestimate the portfolio of work that members of the cabinet have. For instance, Sandra took over the entire portfolio that Dr. McBride used to manage, plus maintained her full portfolio. So now she has the facilities department, the full service department, the transportation department, school health department, school safety department, the grants department, data research and analytics team, and student information. All of those are under Ms. Violas. Mr. Pennington has a number of departments as well. He's overseeing special education, multilingual learner department, curricular department, counseling and SEL services, as well as workforce, which is another big umbrella that we're working and developing, and early childhood. Mr. Valencisi oversees all of the district's IT. And if you remember in the efficiency study, how that study identified us not having enough technicians to fulfill the demand. If you looked at the technician to hardware ratio for the district, we were substantially below the targeted number nationally. And yet this team has been doing an incredible job of supporting the district, as well as engaging in all the digital learning initiatives around AI and all of the new innovations that are happening in this field. As you know, this is a rapidly growing environment that the team has been shifting gears continuously to be up to date and on point. He leads all of the future ready work that is critical, particularly in servicing our most at-risk youth and making sure that they are on track, and overseeing partnerships, which is an enormous task. I mean, the data research and analytics team is fully being funded by philanthropic dollars. And that takes a lot of effort in working with these partners, making sure that they understand the mission and value around the work and why we're doing that work. And I preface this as we talk about this because I think people underscore the work that is done and the number of reductions that have already taken place over the course of the year for within the cabinet. And as a result, the expansive portfolio that these individuals support. Then you look at the leadership, the folks leading and supporting the principals. Now, not only do they have the portfolio of 11 schools each, but also we added additional responsibilities because of some of the reductions that we've been doing in central office, just adding to the load of expectation and work that they're doing. And I want to preface that the team opted to not take a raise this year, given the budgetary constraints that have been at play. Now, in terms of the work that we're looking around the special education restructuring, one is, do we want to do this? No, but it's a way in which we can systemically, creatively re-engage and adjust certain systems so that we can build some cost efficiencies to get to this 6.7 target. We have created 3 new positions, which will be the special education assistant director roles. And these roles will have an overarching support across the district in building professional capacity, which is an area that we were not supporting the schools well, making sure that we continue to professionally develop our teachers, engaging in the most complex PPTs across the district, and kind of reframing how we engage through the PPT process And we have a plan that we're looking to execute, and we will be further engaging the principals and the broader community in a deeper way in the days to come. But this decision did not come lightly, but it's one way in which we can creatively find solutions to the complex challenge that we have in meeting the target, yet minimizing our work towards going back to schools in phase 2 and asking schools again to engage in further reductions, which is something that we want to avoid, particularly since most of the schools have met their budgetary targets. I'm hoping that by making this reduction, my ongoing conversation with the mayor, that the additional funds that we get with the mayor will allow us to balance the budget for this fiscal year. But it has not been an easy process. It was a really tough decision. We did not want to engage in touching any of the specialized services in the district, but we had already tapped into every other department in some shape or form over the scope of the past 2 years. And moving additional parts from those other departments would have completely dismantled the system and not allow certain processes to take place. And if you recall, many of the departments are a one-man shop. So transportation is a perfect example of it. We have one person doing the work. One of the things that we were hoping to do was add another person, because if anything happens to Joanne, we have no one that has the capacity to know how to do that work. And we look at our data research and information system, our student information system. We have one person in the district. We brought someone in, we had to eliminate that position last year. So a healthy system will always have a backup plan. So if somebody leaves, there's somebody that knows how to do the work that can seamlessly come in. Unfortunately, we have not been able to build that structure because of the financial limitations we have, and because our priority has been maintaining the systems in the school. Yet inevitably, because of the amount of money we've had to reduce, we had to tap into schools. We had to tap into places that we did not want to. That's why we wound up engaging in this process in phase 2, because we were trying to find every possible means to find other creative solutions before we engage. And it's not over yet. And we said this to the school principals, we said this in every conversation that we had, that when we engaged in phase 1, that there was a possibility of us coming back. And we even said after that moment that there's a possibility that we have to go back again until we are able to fully balance the budget. I'm just gonna turn over, I don't know if I missed anything.
I think that you highlighted everything. I do want to say that our special ed admins are a resource to the schools. They support principals, they support teams at every building. So it is definitely a challenge. It takes our special ed team. Right now, it is 2 ed admin and 7 special ed administrators, and it would go to 2 and 3. So it would go from 9 administrators to 5. Those 5 would be supporting schools. They would, different capacity, but they will be supporting schools. And I think that is, I just want to, share that piece.
Can I ask a question about it? I mean, obviously, I know how complex special ed is, and this is awful. But I understand. But I also know, we've worked really hard to build up some programs that are ultimately going to save money for the district by keeping kids in district. Is the loss of these supervisors, what will the impact of that be on some of those really specialized programs we've been working so hard to build up?
Well,
So,
go ahead.
no, you do.
I was just gonna say that I think that the 5 administrators it's gonna be an important part of the role is to look at our programs and to support schools where we have those programs as well. And to continue to look to develop more programs and build more programs. And I think that as we go through, we're gonna see how things are working. And see how we're supporting.
And at the current time, those programs are not supervised by the supervisors themselves. They are supervised by the school leaders. One of the big shifts that we did a few years ago was making sure that all instructional programs were supervised by the school leader. That's why we've made a really concerted effort in building principal capacity around instructional leadership and the importance of seeing that all students are our children. Because in the past, the special education students were kind of supervised and engaged separately from other students. And one of the pieces of feedback that I heard from a lot of families was that they didn't feel like they were part of the community. And so that was a big shift that we engaged in over the course of the past few years. So one, we will continue, these three individuals that would be in these roles will work with us to continue to build the capacity of the school principals to continue to effectively support these programs and also support the design and development of additional programs. Because our goal is to, as much as we possibly can, service all of our students within district.
Yeah.
And if you've heard the governor's proposed, I believe, 2027 budget, part of that, his proposal is even for early childhood, to bring in additional early childhood programs so that we can start as early as pre-K to provide many more programs to provide in-service support for students. In-service meaning in district.
And just a comment on this. When I had years of working as a general ed teacher and attended hundreds of IEP meetings. And so I really understand how important it is to have not only the teachers of the children, but also teachers' parents, but also someone that's a type of supervisor that's there, and the principal has to be there at that meeting. So when I look at this, it seems very painful that you might not have, the scheduling would seem to be really difficult. But what I see here is a protection of the relationship between the teacher and the special needs student. And so whatever we can do to keep that first relationship of student to teacher, to keep that intact, and then tough as it is, using all the smarts that we have to arrange that support. It might be a little thinner, but be as effective as you can possibly be. So I see this effort as painful, but I understand the importance here of keeping all the teachers we can who are teaching directly. I do want to say that back to your point, Dr. Estrella, that the most difficult thing is to let go of people who are performing well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember my father was a sales leader in his company, and he would come home at night when he had to let go of somebody, and he couldn't eat dinner. I remember he was, really, I was like, what's the matter with you? And I couldn't understand it as a child, but I certainly understand it as an adult. There's nothing more difficult to face than financial restraints, limiting the number of creative, impactful people that are working for you. Especially
also when we have programs that have yielded really positive outcomes, and we'll be presenting to the board next month some of our survey data and some of the positive outlook that a lot of the programs that we put in place have yielded. So the resources that we funneled into our schools have been yielding really positive outcomes, and having to reframe how we do things is hard, because when something doesn't work, it's important to dismantle it to make it functional. When it's working and you have to restructure it, it's a different approach, right? So it's so much more complicated, and it's hard. So I'm living your father's experience.
Can I ask one other question on the last slide, not related to the special ed positions, but the curriculum roles that you were talking about? So you said that we had 2 ed admin for STEM and 2 for humanities. We're now going to be down to 1 for STEM. Where are we at on humanities? Still 2 for humanities?
And particularly because in literacy, we're implementing new curriculum across, but that's the area where we need to really support the schools in getting even higher gains than we have. Even though we've had gains, we want to see it be more exponential. And it made more sense for now to focus our efforts there until we can add the additional math person. The person that we've had in our math, like STEM arena, has done an incredible job working with the schools. And if things work out, hopefully this person will continue in that process as that one until we can find a partner to do that work. The complexities of literacy are different, and it requires more people to do that work.
Okay.
So
Thanks for clarifying.
I would say that I know that, we're running out of places to make reductions, but I know that a lot has been done to improve our specialized learning program, because I know that for years it did have some challenges. And so my concern is that you all are going to be able to continue to make sure that it's operated effectively and in compliance with less people. So basically, those 3 people are going to be doing the work of 7 people.
it's going to be different.
Close to that, right?
It's gonna be very
restructured, right?
Yeah.
So that would be my hope, and I have confidence that you all will have the wherewithal to make sure that that happens.
And there are different models by which we can engage in PPT processes and approaches, and Rob and I have been in conversations about how to manage that work. I've done that work before, and we're gonna streamline it in a different way, given the circumstances that we have.
Jasmine has a question.
Yeah.
Oh, Jasmine.
Due to the restructuring of the special ed, now it's 5 positions, right? Will the current staff be eligible to be in those positions, the ones that we are potentially eliminating?
So once the positions are posted, they can apply, and they will go through the interview process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have the qualifications for it.
Correct.
I'm asking. Okay. Great.
And we also have, they will have to go through the RIF process as well. So that will also have an impact on placement as well.
Okay, thank you.
Just continuing, I want to thank you and your cabinet for giving us the extra information, because I know that there's a lot of questions and finger pointing, and the fact that central office is not being touched. And this here is a good example that central office is not just the superintendent and the cabinet. Central office has all of these positions, and these are positions that are being cut from central office. And I also want to let everyone know that you guys don't have a 9-to-5 job. You are in the office before I'm at work at 7, and you guys don't leave here most of the days until after 7, 8 o'clock at night. And I think the public and a lot of people don't see that. They don't see that you're in here for hours in a day, for the weekends, for the holidays. And I know that's true because me being chair, I'm either on phone calls, I see the emails coming through, the conversations that are happening, and it's 24/7. Because if something happens with a child, someone has to get that call. If something happens with the building, someone has to get that call. If something happens with a bus accident, someone has to get that call. So they are constantly on. And, you know, to hear people finger point at such a difficult time. It's not easy for any of us as board members or for any of them. And I just wanted to say thank you for all the time that you put in. Because we see it, even though some people may not see it. And you have the keyboard warriors that are putting misinformation out there, especially for increases. And thank you, Dr. Straya, and for the cabinet for, you know, making that sacrifice of taking more responsibility and at the same time not taking a raise this year. And that is something that people don't see or hear. But thank you for that, because you guys doing that saves a lot of money, also saves positions, saves programs.
So any final comment on you good? So that concludes the superintendent report. I will leave I had something on school trips, but I'll leave it when that item comes as a motion. I just asked for the board, if a motion can be set for the approval of the elimination and creation of the positions discussed on slide. Let's see. On slide titled FY 26 operating budget update.
Before we could I ask that with all of the restructuring that has happened in positions that have been eliminated and now created, could we in the near future see like sort of the full map again of all the positions? Thank you. Appreciate it.
We can have that. At the upcoming, when we do the reconciling of the budget.
Yeah, that would be great just to sort of see where we're at now after all of this. And it really shows how, you know, what we're working with, which is, I think, not as much as some people realize for the size of our district. But
And then
I would love to see the
size
map
of
again.
district.
I call it a map, but you know, flow chart of all the goals.
Okay, so we had discussion and our action on proposed staffing changes. I need a motion to approve the position elimination and position creation as reflected in the superintendent's budget update presentation.
I so move.
Approved by Mary Ellen, seconded by Sherry McCready Pritchett. So I will add it to the action consent section. This is a section where we can vote for multiple items all at the same time. So approve the position elimination, position creation as reflected in superintendent's budget. Approval of personnel, approval of budget transfers, approval of trips, and approval of minutes. Any questions or motions?
So I thought we were gonna pull trips out. Pull the trip too.
Okay, motion.
Yes, motion to take trips out.
Okay, so
Table.
tabling C, approval of trips.
Tabling till, just to discuss
To
after the
discuss
action consent.
Further discussion for next meeting, right? For
We're
me,
not gonna discuss it all tonight.
we can have discussion now. But
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, but at the very least, we're, the
So
motion
pulling
right
it
now
out
is
of
just to
it.
pull it out of
Okay.
this.
So it's not
larger vote.
no, not
Okay.
part of consent.
Okay.
Or so we'll move it, I can speak. So approval again of personnel, approval of budget transfers, approval of minutes, and the approval of the new positions created this evening.
Motion.
Kara, seconded by Mary Ellen. All in favor, please say aye, raise your hands.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Jasmine, Howard. I don't see Colin. Is Colin still on? He was on before.
He drops off, I think.
All right, that's unanimous. If we can have discussion on trips. So I don't know who you want to sit with you for any questions, Dr. Strain?
So, I know that we have two, trips on the agenda and, there have been concern from the board around timeliness of trips. One of the things that I've been in conversation with the cabinet has been, around, revisiting, the regulation. I don't think the concern is so much with the policy, but, with the regulation, looking at the regulation and adding additional, steps, to make sure that, the schools understand that if an item that is coming, forward is not timely, that it's not going to go to the board level. Right, that's one of the things that we have been discussing, but also like setting up parameters of additional metrics to ensure the safety and well-being of students, and also who is allowed to go on these trips as chaperones, what are the expectations around that, and just strengthening our regulations to be more explicit, given some of the feedback that we have heard from the board. And I'm hoping that even though I'm aware that one of these trips is not timely for the sake of the students, that the board considers approving the trip. And like the last trip that we discussed last month, that was also not timely. I will work with the school to make sure that all of the documentation is in order. I'll work with our legal counsel to review the documents and make sure that everything is in order.
Okay, with my concerns would be also safety, especially during this climate that this country is in right at the moment, with anybody flying in and out of the country. And also with the timing of things, I agree with Ms. Bakey that we should table this because the trips, it looks to me, they aren't in until June. So we have May at least to go over any concerns and other questions. And I would like as a policy chair to pull the policy to review with a policy committee. To make sure that we're up to date with any state statutes and things like that. And also the regulations moving forward. That's where I stand. Any other questions, concerns?
Like some of the things that we're talking about, it just seems like the staff would have known some of the stuff, right? Some of the issues, I mean, we're talking about people that have been here. So some of those items that we think that we shouldn't even have to discuss. Like knowing when to submit it, that it should be timely, right?
The procedure, the regulation is not new. People know the timeliness, and I think that this has been communicated to the school a number of times about submission of this document timely. We just have to add additional steps to make sure. Also, like a concern that I think a board member brought up was the collection of funds. And the fact that funds were being collected before board approval, even though the regulation stipulates that no funds are to be collected until the trip is approved. So that's something that we will reiterate again during our Weekly communication on Thursday, so that people are reminded of this expectation, to make sure that.
And I think for the most part, most of us don't want to punish the kids because the adults were in error, right? Although I really feel like I would not want the trip to happen, but I understand that it's not fair to punish the kids because the adults didn't do it like that.
And right now, we're not saying no to the trips, we're just tabling it to make sure everything is in order.
Yes, I have concerns not on the line of we have a policy and we're going to stick to it no matter what. What underlines the policy is the concern of safety and purpose. One of the things that has come up in my reading is there's an expectation that field trips, school field trips will have some linkage to curriculum, some educational objective, and the most recent trip did not indicate that. So I have questions on that. So the purpose of it to be connected with education and also the safety. And if the feeling is you're over a barrel, if all the money is collected and now we get the situation, we're feeling like, well, wait a minute, is this really in good faith? We want to approve it before the money starts getting collected. And that's what the policy says, but we want that to happen in practice so that nobody's on off footing. We want kids to go on great field trips, life-changing experiences. This is a wonderful thing. It takes a lot of work to get enough money. It takes a year ahead of time. I appreciate all that effort by the adults, but we would also, because we're a team, we also might see things that the teachers might not see. And if you present it first, before they start collecting the money, and we say, oh, this and that, yes, go ahead now. That's what's being asked for.
And that is the regulation in terms of the curricula. I forwarded to the board the pathway information and how the trips are linked to the curricula in that way. So once you have an opportunity to review the document, please do.
Okay.
That came through today.
I sent it
Did
today.
see it
I sent it today.
Okay,
So I sent you a PDF document as well as a link to our website where it speaks about the pathway, the course concentration, and how like the trips are aligned to that. I just want to warn the board that there are a few other trips that we will be following up with the school about, because when I spoke to the agency, monies are being collected already, and there's no board approval for those trips yet. So we will be following up with the school about this to make sure, because this is a pattern of this delay in this particular case. So we want to make sure that doesn't continue.
Great.
And we want to put a hold on any trips that have not been collected yet. RFPs and all of that, only because we can't continue having this conversation, because at the last board meeting, we said that was our last trip we were approving, and this one came along. Again, we cannot, punish the kids. Now you're telling us there's more. There has to be an end date on everything. So if maybe we can discuss that at the next meeting.
And we can better communicate what we're really looking for. We're not trying to catch you on something.
Well, that will be discussed. The regulation is clear. I just think people need, the process is, people need to follow it. What I heard though from the policy committee was looking into adding additional components to the regulation to create more safeguards in the process. So my understanding is, based on my conversation with Ralph, is that they're going to be meeting with finance as well as curricula, because of the point that you brought up in terms of making sure that the regulation explicitly talks about the curriculum integration, that it also creates a checklist that people need to follow. And based on what I heard from different people, like making sure that if the timelines and checklist is not fulfilled, that it doesn't even come to the board.
It gets sent back.
It gets sent back.
What other information are we gonna get, or are we looking to get between now and the next meeting?
That's what I was gonna say. I don't need to table it. I'm frustrated that we're in this position again of, being so past the deadline, but I'm going to vote to approve the trip for these students regardless, despite the errors. But I guess I agree with Janine, what are we hoping?
More information.
What more information are we hoping to get before next
One,
meeting?
the correction on the application says the ratio is 4 to 1. But we're being told that not all people on that list are chaperones, so the ratio is wrong. So that needs to be corrected before coming back and for me signing it. The other thing was we were talking about the curriculum, which we just got today. So there's some members that haven't even looked at that email. What was the other thing? There was a couple more.
I just, you know, I feel overall, the main thing is this, it's all about moving forward, and it's all about moving into 25, 26. And the trips that are coming up that Alex, I'm quite sure you're speaking of, is in 26. So the committee is getting together to come up with a better plan. I think that's the goal that we should be looking at. I also think that moving forward, and you said it, basically, if those things does not meet the deadline, it should not get to the board. And in the meantime, whatever those trips are, it should get to the board early so we can look at them and make whatever suggestions or be prepared for whatever it is. That way, it will eliminate this part of it. But at the same time, you're talking about a trip that's happening next month in June, technically. So at this point in time right now, I just think that as long as, Alex, we treat it the same way that you did with the last trip, to make sure that, whatever the agencies they're working with, they're doing their due diligence to make sure passport and all those stuff are taken care of, and we just move from there. But I just, prolonging it, I don't know where it's going to get us. But I just think moving forward, we need to just make sure that we are hitting all parameters, and we're making sure that we're doing everything in our process to make sure we're succeeding. That's it. It's just adult behavior we can't control. However, we can fix it. And I feel it's being fixed.
And I will I'll make sure that I follow the same process, and I'll send the board an update once, Kimberly and I will work with the school and the agency to make sure that all the documentation is in place. And that the kids have everything they need to be safe on this trip.
So yeah, I mean, I just want to say this is my 4th year on the board, and we've never had this problem before. Like, we've never had this problem. And when we had the issue in our last meeting on the Belize trip, I abstained because I did not feel comfortable approving that trip. They were out of policy. I also feel very strongly that these are dangerous times, even for natural born citizens. I mean, there are stories coming out daily of people being stopped at our international borders and who are being held. So God forbid one of our students or our chaperones or our parents or whoever else is going on these trips were to run into an issue at one of these borders. We would have a really, really big problem on our hands. And so for that reason, I'm very concerned. I don't understand why these trips just continue. I mean, literally the day after the Belize discussion and meeting and vote, we found out about Japan. And so I was just kind of shocked.
Yeah, I just want to be fair in that perspective to the school. The school has submitted both trips late, but at the same time. Because the Belize trip was so untimely and it needed approval from the board, Jeanette only gave us the trip for Belize and held the Japan trip for this meeting because she didn't want to overload our time in business matters during the workshop. So both of them were late, but both of them were submitted on the same time. I just want to make sure that, at least in that perspective, maybe it would have been better for us to submit both late submissions on the same day. In Jeanette's defense, she was just trying to not create a situation that would belabor a business section in a workshop meeting.
And I think to your point, Kara, about the challenge, like the dangers ultimately of travel, I think that it's something I certainly am very concerned about, and also I think that's the family choices. I mean, it's not necessarily for us to legislate who is making the choice to travel.
Yeah, but it could be.
It doesn't become our problem.
I don't know.
but does-
I mean, I don't know, but
either way,
city.
I mean, are we just saying that we don't want trips in general? Because that's what we're having.
Even with, if a family chooses to go, we would have some.
I just get in the game.
I mean, I want everyone to be safe, but, you know, ultimately.
But also
the
the
families
time
are
to
gonna
go
make the
over all
choice.
the paperwork like they did with the police was a rush ask for those paperwork. All right. So since we're split, we'll put it out to a vote.
Right, just one. In terms of the legal component, I can invite our attorney, I can talk to the attorney about these questions you have. At the next business meeting, not just for this trip, but just thinking in general, because this is the time, you know, the reality of our time right now. And if these are questions that you have in terms of liability and other components, I think that it merits a conversation with legal counsel.
Because we would have some exposure if they go on a school-sponsored trip, even though they opted to go, if something were to happen, right? I think that, I believe there might be some, so let's find out.
Yeah, I don't want to answer.
Might be a good idea
Yeah.
to invite folks that are planning trips to come to that, to his speech,
And we can-
or even
we can
tune
do that.
in. Because this is like, I see a problem in generally, even though we have a policy, maybe we haven't communicated it clearly enough. I mean, it seems like a communication.
This is
thing.
an old policy and it has been communicated and it has not changed. And the people
But
that have
maybe
been,
there are new people that are.
the people that have been managing this have been doing this for years. So it's not a case where like somebody needs training because they're new.
No, and the other question too is with the changes, maybe even speak with the company that's working with us on these trips to see how on top of legalities they are on their end too, because they have to know the safety.
I did
know
speak
what's
to
going
them
on.
and their procedure, they seem to have a good system in place in terms of document collection. What I spoke to them about is that they're gonna be working with us, they need to understand our policies and our expectations. And making sure that they're not collecting funds before they have the document signed by the board saying that the trip has been approved. All of these other trips that I'm talking about that are not yet approved by the board. There is, when I spoke with the agency, they are collecting money for these trips already. All the way up to, I think, 26, I think there's one that's 27, I have to double check. But they have been collecting money and I have the list. Of the people that have already been contributing to all these trips that they shared with me when I requested the information from the agency.
So since that's wrong, the buck, can they get the money back? They've been collecting.
That is one of the things that I'm in conversation with them, to get clarity. Because if the board doesn't approve, then that's a challenge that we would have to face.
Right, because that's just putting us on the spot over and over and over again.
So I think as part of the policy conversation, when Ralph engages, is making sure that we have the right insurance in place, that if a trip needs to be canceled, that we can get our funds back. Just making sure, these are things that they might be doing already, but just making sure that our policies outline that so that there is no gray area in any of these components.
Okay.
All right. So motion to approve the 2 trips.
Oh,
There are 2 trips.
There's 2 trips in our packet.
One is timely,
Yeah, and domestic.
Yeah,
and domestic.
okay, I thought we were tabling it and we're not.
but we're split right now.
Okay,
And
Do
you
we
guys
need a
said that you
motion
would
on-
vote, so.
Do we need a
Give it-
motion on tabling it, and if there's a majority?
No, if
Table
you
it?
guys are okay with tabling it, we can table it. And vote next month, or if we're split right now, take a vote.
Got it.
And if it doesn't move forward, then we can talk about it again next month.
Okay.
Depending on how we fall.
I mean, I think we voted we voted for Belize, and then we still got follow-up and answers, and, you know, I trust Dr. Estrella and our legal team. Personally, I'm prepared to vote, but
Okay. So much.
And I'm committed to doing what I did before and making sure. I just don't want the kids to
Yeah.
have the hesitation of not knowing, and this trip is in June.
That's
And
fine.
families are preparing, so.
Right. I'm prepared to vote.
All right, so motion to approve trips.
So moved.
Ashley, seconded by
Second.
Mary Ellen, all in favor of both trips, please say aye, raise your hands.
Aye.
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 Was that an aye, Jasmine?
Yes, aye.
No for me.
So 5 yes, 3 no's. All right. Trips have passed. For dictation purposes, the yeses were Jasmine, Howard, Ashley, Mary Ellen, Janine. No's were Kara, Diana, and Sherry. Next, actions are approval of 1011, 1011A policy and regulations, visitors and observations in school, approval of 4049 breastfeeding policy, and approval of 5011 and 5011A policy and regulation, high school graduation requirements. All of these policies, for the exception of one, are not new. Howard, you can mute yourself, please.
Sure. And actually,
I hope you feel better, Howard.
That's Kimberly and Bob to join me because it's their
Yes.
policies.
Okay, so Attorney,
Just breastfeeding the visitor.
All the breastfeeding.
the new one,
He's not.
just a quick,
Only Kimberly is aware of that. policy.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I just talked about the graduation requirement too. as well.
well, a little bit of both, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Actually, that's my department, but.
Just a quick, brief overview.
So the breastfeeding policy, I'm not sure if you're gonna put it up on the screen, but anyhow, the breastfeeding policy, it speaks to our commitment to breastfeeding. It gives our purpose of the policy. There's some definitions and the substance, and it also speaks to an availability of an optional private room for breastfeeding parents when they come into our school buildings and they have a need to breastfeed while they're there. And then there's more information about what the breastfeeding room or the lactation space has to have. And then training on the policy, and then, you know, who they can reach out to. They can reach out to me if they have a need, and I can assist the schools with that. But I think, and I'm saying all of our schools have already identified a lactation space.
Mrs. Fayers took care of that, I think a few years ago, actually,
Yeah.
to make sure that all the pieces were.
Sign off on it every year to go inspection.
So this is more for, this is not so much for teachers who need
This
to
is
breastfeed, this is for folks who are visiting.
Right, I mean, for
Yeah, parents,
visitors
conference.
and, right, when
Got it.
parents come in with, you know, for conferences or meeting with teachers.
Yeah.
And they have that need.
Great. A key part of it also is that they have the option not to, they could have a special place or not. And we respect whatever their choice is.
Just very respectful of their privacy and how, you know, they wish to do that.
So this is not that person has to use the space.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. The only.
Right, because I know that the policy also states, you know, that they, wherever they are legally able to be, that's where they can. But they can choose to go into the private space if they, you know.
And how will these spaces, or how are they like made known in our buildings?
with the lactation spaces.
Yeah, is there like any
Sure.
signage when you like
Are they
come
marked?
in or?
They're not marked. They're not, I don't think they're supposed to be marked.
Okay.
They're not.
No.
So how do we let
They-
visitors or parents know?
They ask, yeah, they ask the principal or the secretaries, and we do, schools do sign off that they have them, that they have the necessary power, a refrigerator, a chair. And then, if a person is in need of it, they go to the office and the office knows where it is. It's supposed to be discreet for people who want to use it.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to use a lactation, but if somebody wants it, it's supposed to be discreet.
Thank you.
And then a second policy that goes along with this was making some modifications to our visitation.
The visitors policy. And I think really the only major change, I won't even say it was a major change, that there was a sentence that was added to the policy in like that first full paragraph, was to limit any disruptions to students' education.
And then alongside with that, we do get updates to our model policies. So at the same time, right around that same time frame, we did receive an update for our visitor policy that kind of outlines processes that we already had in place for our student, for our schools to be able to know in case of visitation from ICE and so forth. So we discussed that quickly at the policy meeting. And once again, these processes have been going over with schools.
Any questions, Jasmine, Howard, you guys good?
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Is Rob?
So just gonna do the graduation.
I did.
So at the last policy meeting, we talked about graduation requirements. As we look into this next year and then the year after, because there are some other updates that are happening. One of the shifts is the capstone. Capstone was a requirement, and now it is an optional component. It's not a requirement. We've talked about this at curriculum and at different components.
It was a requirement for our district or?
It was a
something
requirement
from
at
the state?
It was a requirement at the state level.
Okay, state level.
And then it's been, is that a requirement for graduation? And so then we.
Reflecting what the
schools,
state said.
We also said that we can make it an option for students, but it's not gonna be a requirement for graduation. With that being said, we do have the financial literacy course that is becoming a requirement with our current sophomores, which is cohort 27. So that is another component that is added as a graduation requirement. And those are the only real shifts. It's 25 credits for graduation. And the capstone is going to not be a requirement. And financial literacy will be a requirement. Questions?
I'm glad to hear financial literacy is
that's
now.
good. That's really good.
I'm glad that's on there.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so motion for approval of 1011 and 1011A policy and regulation, visitors and observations in school, approval of 4049 breastfeeding policy, and approval of the 5011A policy and regulation, high school graduation requirements. Motioned by Mary Ellen, seconded by Carol Bakey. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is monthly financial report. Osmani.
Good evening again. So you do have in front of you the packet, the summary spread, the summary chart that I'm sharing with you of year-to-date financials as of March. But you also have the detailed line item information that was part of the packet. And I gave this update to the finance committee just before spring break. So looking at the general fund, as of March, we're 75% into the year. Total spend year to date is about 70.9%, a little bit under that 75 mark. As I said in the past, we do have the biggest chunk of this expense is personnel and benefits. We do have the balloon payments for teachers in the summer. And therefore it trends low, but then we do have the balloon payment in the summer. And so then you see that year-to-date actual for personnel and benefits will spike. But this is consistent with where you would expect to be this time of year. The benefits largely is the transfer from the general fund into the health insurance account in a different fund. And therefore, as you recall, when we approved the budget this year, the transfer was less than what we had budgeted the year before. So we would anticipate year over year that number to be lower than what it was last year. Hence that 13% year over year negative variance, because it was a lower budget this year based on balance that we had in that account. Professional and technical services, this really are various contracts that we have throughout the districts, included in security contract, custodial contracts. Those are included there. Then at that, we're about 72% of the year, which again is consistent. Property services relate to all the expenses related to upkeeping of our equipment, our boilers, and those types of things. Again, that is also at 72%, which is consistent to where we would be. Other student services is by far the biggest driver. Included in other student services are the out-of-district tuition payment for transportation and for tuition. We have said all along that this is a number that we anticipate we will exceed. The $10.2 million that was approved in the budget right now. Our projection is that this will probably be somewhere at about 11.5 million. And therefore, some of the transfers that you've been doing, you approved some before on consent. These are basically looking for savings in the other areas to get to this account. As I shared earlier, when we were doing the FY26 update, we did have at the beginning of this year about $2.5 million in carryover over multiple years that have been approved. We will be transferring funds from that account also to make up for the shortfall. So by the end of this year, to pay for some of these overages in special education, we anticipate almost fully using all of those carryover funds. As you recall, for the past 2 years, I think this year we only carried over 60,000. The year before was like 90,000. And so we haven't really been transferring a whole lot. We did have quite a number of savings during COVID because we weren't using all of the facilities. But now we're kind of slowly using up those funds. Supplies and materials, equipment, and other objects. These again are just in line with where we would be. The transfer to the school lunch fund, we had budgeted $500,000 at the beginning of the year. We're projecting that by the end of the year, this will probably be more around 800 to 900,000. Again, as we get closer to the year, we don't do these transfers until the year closes so that we transfer the exact amount into that school lunch fund. That is a separate standalone fund that cannot end in a deficit in any given year. So whatever balance that's in that account, we do have to find the funding to transfer into that account because that account cannot go below zero. So again, we'll be closely monitoring the general fund. I'll give you another update in April to see where we are with this account. The grant funds, again, this is a conversation we've been having. You see that in FY24, we spent almost $48 million. This was when we had the ESSER funding. With those funds going away, the grant budget has been gradually decreasing year over year. Right now, this current year that we'll be approving a grant budget of about $30 million, which is substantially less than what we have this year. As I shared at the last meeting, we did hear some positive news from the governor that there was some additional excess cost funding. I believe our share is almost 890,000. That will allow us to offset some of the special education overages we're anticipating this year. We are hearing from the state. I was at a meeting, I think 2 weeks ago, where the lieutenant governor was there. And it looks like they may also provide that funding for FY 26. But we should know in the next week or two, when the General Assembly and the governor have reconciled the budget, we will know what the state grant allocation would be. But that's kind of where we are with the grants. Superintendent did mention, and we had a very good meeting this past week with Congressman Himes, actually this week. It seems like a long time ago. We had a good meeting with Congressman Himes, and we had conversations about the state of federal, it was actually yesterday, right? It was actually yesterday. Busy week. But anyway, in conversation with the congressman, one of the things he wanted to know was, what is our current state in terms of federal funding? And so we shared with him that of the $30 million currently, we have 2 accounts that we receive directly from the federal government, which is the Magnet School Assistance Program, that $15 million 5-year program that we get directly from the state. And then we also get directly from the state, the Marine Science Grant. So those are the 2 federal grants that come directly to us.
Could you just repeat the
Not
second
from the
one?
state, they come directly from the federal.
They come from the federal government, sorry. Marine Science Grant and the Magnet School Assistance Program. Those are the 2 federal grants that come directly to us. The other federal grants that we receive come to us by way of the state, with IDA, all the title grants, those come to us by way of the state. And so when we were having the conversations with the congressman, was some of the efforts on the state side are managed through the state and the legislature there. But we have been monitoring the 2 grants that we receive internally. As you know, the Magnet School Program funds positions, we have principals, assistant principals, and the whole program. 3 schools are direct beneficiaries of that grant, and therefore, should that federal grant go away, then we will need to have conversations about what happens with that program. So there is still a lot of uncertainty with what's happening with the grants. Nobody really knows anything, but we are closely monitoring what's happening with the grants. And then finally, as far as the school lunch fund, again, this is the fund that about 80% is revenues. It's funded 80% of the revenues we get through the Department of Agriculture, following through this program, but there is a component of this funding that comes from the local budget, which are the transfers that I spoke to earlier. You recall that for about the 2 years during the peak of COVID, we did receive some federal dollars that came to this grant. Through the grants team, we were able to receive a waiver where we could carry those balances. And so that did allow us to go 2 to 3 years without transferring money from the general fund. But those funds have since expired. And so now we're kind of back to where we were 3-4 years ago, where we do transfer funds from the general fund into the school lunch fund. But I'd be happy to answer it.
So those are sort of could be impacted too. I mean, because
Yes, and that was one of the conversations we also had with the congressman yesterday.
But even the things that we get from the feds that comes through the state, I mean, that still is in danger as well. I
Correct.
mean, we're talking about the money that we get directly from the feds is a problem, could be. But also things that are following through the state, if a decision is made that they're not gonna fund something or not as much. It's still.
We did, and we did see a flatlining, was it Title I? Which was the
Title I.
Title I funding that actually I think it went slightly down from prior years, so we're monitoring that as well. With the Federal Department of Education, with that proposal for that to go away, there has been conversation that some of those grant programs may not necessarily go away, but they may be administered by another agency. But again, that's all in flux, and so we don't know that all of those grants would be safe with this other agency, or there will be changes to how those grants are administered. So that's also another unknown with the grants.
And back to the Title I, how much is that grant? Or that?
Ooh, I don't have that number.
I got it.
Okay.
I think it's 14 million.
No, 14 million
14
is
is
for
total
all the
fed.
entitlement.
Oh, the
grants.
entitlement.
Yeah, it's 4 million.
Thank you.
No, all the titles are all
14.
together.
Oh, yeah, because I remember we were talking about it with times.
For,
Yeah.
yeah,
that makes
this,
sense.
Okay, all the titles.
$4
All the
million.
titles are 14.
Okay.
Title one.
Okay.
All the entitlement grants are 14 million.
Any other questions? Well, people complain about taxes, so if those were to go away, that means the state would have to charge us more taxes, right? To make up for the money, make up for the, right? And if that could conceivably happen. I mean, for those who seem to be excited about the fact that the feds are saving people money. Right? But particularly for the poorer states. It's really gonna be bad. Right? Although the blues.
We're just digesting this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item, committee representative reports. Any committee reports?
I'll give a quick library note. I checked in with Vicki Otis at Norwalk Public Library to see what she would like me to share this month. She said we'll have some information about summer reading next month, so stay tuned for that. She asked me to remind folks about the homework help database. It's a free connection to live tutors from 3 to 10 p.m. daily. And our students can use the student library card numbers that we talked about last month to access that. So I'll maybe send those links over to communications to see if we can get that shared with folks and parents, where it's not something that I was actually aware of before hearing about it from Vicki today. So it's the homework help database. Live tutors from 3 to 10 daily. It's free.
That's
for
great.
free. Yeah, so I'll send that out to communications to hopefully spread the word more.
Thank you.
I can
I say something about like books?
Go ahead.
Sorry, is it okay? Books. So May 17th is our first book event. We're working with some philanthropic partners. Rob told me to point to the flyer.
Flyer.
So we're really excited of our annual first book event, and it's all thanks to our partners. We just got another donation today of $20,000 to get additional books. So the company that we're working with is going to be matching whatever the partners give us in terms of funds. So we're excited about that. We're getting as close as we can to the target that we had last year. So all come May 17 at Brian McMahon High School, starting at, I forgot, 1 o'clock? 11 o'clock, 11 to 1.
11 to 3.
Oh, I got this all wrong, guys. 11 to 3.
To 3. It's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday, making sure our kids get their books before the start of the summer so they can do their summer reading and we don't have summer slide. Yep. That's great.
It's terrific.
Are you gonna say something, Marianne?
Yes, I wanted to report on CES, that this summer the CES is, is a regional, kind of a consortium, but there's one school there that's called, Regional something of Arts. So it is offering a summer program for students in high school that are interested in the arts for 4 weeks. And it's $200. They've received a lot of grants to be able to make it that low, but that would be middle school and high school students who are interested in the arts. And I was thinking, I might talk to some of the principals in middle school, principals in particular, but that sounds very exciting. This RCA has great performances. They're set up in this way that we only have a few Norwalk folks that go up there, but the high school students go to regular high school during the morning and their afternoons are at this RCA in Trumbull, and they learn dance, theater performance, lights, whatever, and through the year they perform 6 or 7 times. So it's a very dynamic place, and they've got this wonderful grant to give a summer school. So I'd like to share that. And then another committee I'm on is wellness. Jill has been leading us through I think it's called a triennial. And what I just like to remark is the communication of some of the principals are online, some of the teachers are online, and everybody is looking at what programs have been in terms of health. It's the work, the gym classes, the food education, the cafeteria freshness of foods. And so I'm just saying I'm impressed with the people that are in the schools and leading the wellness. So those are my reports.
Yep. All right. Next item, board member announcements. Any announcements, personal announcements, or you guys want to share? This is a time to share where the public gets to know you a little bit better, or any events that you are a part of that wants to share.
Yes. I have, this Saturday is gonna be a day celebration for Norwalk. And what I really want to say is kind of a preamble to that. The 3 rowing clubs on the Norwalk River have this last Saturday and Wednesday, about 70 kids got out and cleaned the river to show that they love where they row. That's the theme for the Earth Day, is love where you live. And that was a little riff off of that. So love where you row. I have lots of pictures of that. It was pretty exciting to get everybody feeling connected to Norwalk and to love our Earth.
And what time is that? I know I'm working. I think that
Saturday's 11 to 3.
11 to 3.
11 to 3 on the green.
Yeah.
On the green.
So if you see me, say hi. I'll be there.
On the green.
Yeah, we'll have a tent.
We will
Not
have
a
a
tent.
tent.
There's no tent.
No, it's a table or two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thing happens on the.
Emily,
Everything happens, yes.
I have something that my company, Keller Williams, is very into donations and charity. And on May 8th, we have what's called the Red Day. Red is color of the company, and it's also called Renew, Energize, and Donate. And so across the country, we give back however we can, and I'll be at Filling in the Blanks on May 8th, so.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's very fun.
So I love that we all have extracurricular activities and helping out the community.
You're my mentor for that. I came on the board and I'm looking
We
at
could do it.
everybody volunteers. Maybe I should do that too.
You always find time. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the information and discussion this evening. Thank you for the late evening once again. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn. Ashley, all right. Motion.